My name doesn't matter right now. What matters is the story I'm about to tell you. A story I never thought I would live through. My husband slapped me so many times that I lost count. Each sting on my skin wasn't just a mark. It was a reminder that the man I once loved more than life itself was no longer mine. He wasn't even slapping me for himself. He was doing it for another woman. Yes, another woman, his mistress. He told me to accept it because she made him happy, and I was just in the way. I stayed silent, numb, my heart breaking a little more each day. You'd think I was weak for staying, but sometimes love makes you blind. And I was completely lost in him, even when he treated me like nothing. But here's the twist. The same man who raised his hand against me 100 times is now on his knees, tears streaming down his face, begging for my forgiveness. And why? Because I am no longer his wife. I became the wife of someone he never imagined, his own uncle, the CEO, the most powerful man in his family. You won't believe how the woman he threw away became the one person he could never escape. Before all of this chaos, my life felt almost like a dream. I was a young wife, madly in love, convinced I had married the man who would protect me from every storm. His name carried no power then, just a simple man with big dreams, a smile that could light up a room, and promises that melted my heart. We weren't rich, but we were happy, or at least I believed we were. I still remember the small rituals that made my world feel complete, waking up early to make his favorite breakfast, waiting by the window when he came home late from work, writing him little notes, and tucking them into his lunch. He would laugh, kiss my forehead, and tell me, "You're the only woman I'll ever need." I believed him. Every word. Even when money was tight, I supported him. I sold my jewelry to help him invest in his business idea. I worked double shifts to keep our home afloat, and I never complained. To me, that was love, sacrifice, patience, loyalty. I thought we were building something together, a future that would only grow brighter. If you had seen us then, you'd never believe what came next. To the world, we were that perfect couple. To me, he was my entire universe. But slowly, almost invisibly, the man I married began to disappear. And in his place came someone I didn't recognize anymore. It started with little things, so small I almost brushed them off. He began working late more often, saying his boss was putting too much pressure on him. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? But then came the nights where he smelled of perfume I didn't own, or when he'd step out of the room just to answer a call. I told myself it was stress, that he needed space, that I was imagining things. But deep down, my heart was already whispering the truth. I noticed how quickly he grew irritated with me. The man who once loved my silly jokes now rolled his eyes, snapping at me for the smallest mistakes. Dinner too salty. Clothes not ironed properly? My questions about his late nights suddenly became nagging. And then, the moment I'll never forget, the first slap. It wasn't even during a heated fight. I had only asked why he was smiling at his phone. His hand came so fast across my face that I froze, stunned. He muttered an apology, said he was tired, that I pushed him too much. I wanted to believe him. I told myself it's just once. It won't happen again. But it did. Again and again. Each slap chipped away at the man I thought I knew. And every time, I silenced my pain, convincing myself it was just stress, that he still loved me. What I didn't know was that the reason for his cruelty wasn't stress at all. It was another woman, a woman who would soon take everything from me. Looking back now, I can almost piece together what was happening in his mind. My husband wasn't just drifting away. He was being pulled, lured by someone who knew exactly how to play with his weaknesses. She was younger, bold, and shamelessly cunning. She didn't care that he was married. In fact, I think that made her chase more exciting for her. He met her at work, or so he claimed. At first, it was just a colleague. But colleagues don't call in the middle of the night. Colleagues don't whisper sweet things on the phone until dawn. She knew exactly what to say to him, feeding his ego, flattering him, making him believe he was a king trapped in the wrong castle. She would whisper lies. Your wife doesn't understand you. She's holding you back. You could be so much more if you were with me. And he believed her. Slowly, he started comparing me to her, mocking me for being too boring, too predictable. The man who once held me like treasure now looked at me like a burden. To prove his devotion to her, he grew crueler toward me, as if every insult, every slap, was proof of his loyalty to this woman. He thought she was his escape, his salvation. He thought I was the chain around his neck, and to prove his loyalty to her, he did something that shattered me completely, something I will never forget. People often ask, "Why didn't you leave the first time he hurt you?" If only it were that simple. When you love someone with all your heart, when you've built your entire world around them, walking away feels like ripping your own soul apart. So I stayed. I stayed through the bruises, through the tears, through the lies. I learned to hide my pain well. I wore long sleeves to cover the marks on my arms. I powdered my face to hide the handprints that burned on my skin. To my family and neighbors, I was still the dutiful wife, smiling, cooking, keeping the home alive. They never knew that behind closed doors, I was breaking into 1,000 pieces. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, listening to his phone buzz with her messages, my tears soaking into the pillow. I prayed for him to remember the man he used to be, the man who once swore I was his forever. But every prayer was met with silence, every hope crushed under his hand the next day. And yet, even in my darkest moments, a small voice inside me whispered, "This can't be the end. One day you will rise." I clung to that voice, even as the world around me crumbled. But my endurance only made him bolder. And then came the night he crossed a line that would leave me scarred forever. That night is burned into my memory like fire on skin. He didn't just come home late, he came home with her. My house, my kitchen, my life, invaded by the woman who had stolen him from me. She laughed as she walked past me, tossing her hair like I was invisible. And he didn't stop her. He didn't even look ashamed. I asked him how he could humiliate me like this, in my own home. His answer was another slap. Then another. And another. My ears rang, my vision blurred, but the sound of her giggling in the background cut deeper than any hit ever could. That was the night of the 100th slap. By then, I had stopped counting, but my soul kept score. Every strike was a reminder that I was nothing more than a punching bag in the eyes of the man I had once given everything to. When he was done, I lay crumpled on the floor, staring at the ceiling, a hollow version of the woman I used to be. Something inside me broke completely that night. But in that breaking, something else was born. Strength. Cold, sharp strength. The next morning, with swollen cheeks and trembling hands, I packed my bags. This time I wasn't coming back. I walked out of his house and out of his life. But I didn't just walk away. Fate had a surprise waiting for me, one he would never see coming. Leaving him was the hardest step I'd ever taken, but it was also the most powerful. For the first time in years, I felt air in my lungs that wasn't laced with fear. I stayed with a distant relative, trying to piece myself back together, though every mirror reminded me of what I had endured. I thought my story ended there, a woman discarded, broken, forgotten. But life had other plans. Through family connections, I met his uncle. Not just any uncle, he was the head of the family business, the CEO who carried power in every word and every glance. At first I avoided him, ashamed of my scars, afraid of pity. But he didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with respect, with patience, with kindness I hadn't seen in years. He listened when I spoke. He noticed the pain I tried to hide, and unlike his nephew, he valued me for my strength, not my silence. Slowly, cautiously, my heart began to heal, and when he asked me to stand beside him, not out of charity, but out of genuine love, I said yes. The day we married was the day the balance of power shifted forever. My ex-husband sat in the crowd, his face pale, his hands trembling, watching the woman he once bruised become the wife of the man he feared most. His uncle, his CEO, his superior. But that wasn't the end. The real confrontation came later, when the man who once slapped me 100 times finally came crawling back, begging for mercy. And I was no longer the same woman he thought he could break. The first time he came to see me after my marriage, I almost didn't recognize him. The arrogance was gone. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes hollow, and the mistress who once laughed at my pain was nowhere to be found. She had left him the moment his money dried up. The man who once thought he was untouchable now looked like a beggar at my door. He fell to his knees, tears staining the floor. "Please, forgive me. I was wrong. I was blind. Give me one more chance." His voice cracked, his hands shook, but I felt nothing. No pity, no longing. Only a cold calmness I had never known before. I reminded him of every slap, every tear. Every night I cried myself to sleep while he whispered sweet lies to another woman. I told him that forgiveness might wash away bruises, but it would never erase scars. And I showed him exactly how powerless he was now, standing in the office of the CEO, my husband, his uncle. He had mocked me for being weak. Yet there I was, stronger than ever, living the life he thought I didn't deserve. As he left, broken and humiliated, I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't destroying him. It was watching him destroy himself, and deep inside I knew his regret would haunt him far longer than any slap ever haunted me. When I look back now, I don't see a victim in the mirror anymore. I see a woman who walked through fire and came out unburned, stronger than she ever thought possible. For so long I believed love meant sacrifice, that silence was strength, that patience could fix everything. But love should never come with bruises. Silence only empowers cruelty, and patience can turn into a prison if you wait for someone who will never change. My husband thought he had broken me, but what he really did was set me free. Free to find respect, to find dignity, to find a love that honored me instead of hurting me. To anyone listening, never accept pain as proof of love. Never let someone convince you that your worth is less than theirs. You have the power to walk away. And sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do. He slapped me 100 times. But in the end, it was his pride that shattered forever. And mine, my spirit finally soared.